When you hear the word comfort, what comes to mind? Maybe a warm blanket, a safe place, or someone putting their arms around you and saying, everything's going to be okay. Well, David gives us a very different picture of comfort. He writes in Psalm 23, 4b, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Okay, a rod and a staff. Well, these weren't soft or sentimental objects. They were the tools of a shepherd who was fully prepared to protect, guide, correct, and rescue his sheep. And that is what comforted David. And that's what we're going to learn about today. Not the belief that nothing dangerous would ever happen, but the assurance that a shepherd was prepared for whatever did. Hi, I'm Shelley Junkin, and I'm part of the Rooted Tool Shed, where we create practical tools and resources to help you grow deeper roots and a stronger faith. So far, we've been walking through verse by verse of Psalm 23, not simply to learn all more about the sheep, but to learn more about the character of our shepherd. And the rod and the staff reveal something important about him. The rod tells us that our shepherd protects us. The staff tells us that our shepherd guides us. The shepherd's rod was a shorter, heavier piece of wood that could be used as a defensive weapon. Think of a club, perhaps. If you've been following along in our series, you may remember when we talked about why God compares us to sheep. Sheep have very few natural defenses. They aren't especially fast. They don't have sharp teeth or claws. And their safety depends almost entirely upon the strength, alertness, and courage of their shepherd. And that is exactly why the shepherd carried a rod. When a predator approached the flock, the shepherd didn't run away and leave the sheep to defend themselves. He stepped between the danger and his sheep. And so does our shepherd. In John 10:11, Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Jesus doesn't simply point us towards safety. He placed himself between us and the enemy, and that is exactly what he did on the cross. You see, the enemy may try to intimidate us through fear or temptation, condemnation, guilt, shame, lies, hopelessness. We are not defenseless sheep abandoned in the valley. We have a shepherd who fights for us. Now, picture a flock settling down for the night. The sheep can't see what's in the darkness, right? But the shepherd is still awake. When he hears movement nearby, he reaches for his rod and places himself between the flock and whatever may be watching from the shadows. The sheep can rest, not because there's nothing dangerous nearby, but because their shepherd is alert, equipped, and standing guard over them. And maybe this is what someone needs here today. Just because you feel fearful or vulnerable does not mean you're unprotected and left alone. God may be protecting you in ways you cannot see, and I'm promising you that to be the case. He may be closing a door you were determined to walk through on your own. He may be revealing something that was hidden. He may be delaying something that could have harmed you. He has a purpose and a plan for everything. We just need to trust him. The sheep don't have to understand every threat surrounding them. They simply need to know that their shepherd is still standing guard. The rod reminds us that our shepherd is strong enough to protect us. We just got to trust him for it. Now, the staff, that's a different tool. It was longer and it often had a curved end. The shepherd could use it to guide sheep, draw it closer with the crook, redirect it from danger, or rescue it if it becomes trapped. Sometimes the shepherd used only a gentle touch along the sheep's side to steer it in the right direction. The staff wasn't meant to harm the sheep. It was meant to keep the sheep from harming itself. Now that's important to know because sometimes we misunderstand God's redirection. We ask him to open a door and he closes it. We want to move forward and he tells us to wait. We choose one direction. The Holy Spirit begins making us uncomfortable with that. And often we ask, oh, God, why are you stopping me? What's going on? I don't understand. But what if that resistance is the gentle pressure of the shepherd's staff? Like, think of that. Imagine that for yourself. What if he can see something we can't? In Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. You guys, I say this to myself all the time. I love knowing that verse and having it tucked in my heart. I have to say that out loud to myself often. You see, the sheep can only see what's in front of them, but the shepherd sees those steep drops, the hidden dangers, and the path forward. God's correction is not him being angry and pushing us away. No, it's actually evidence that he loves us enough to draw us back and protect us, lead us down those paths of righteousness. Because sometimes the shepherd's protection doesn't look like removing danger from our path. No, sometimes it looks like redirecting us before we walk straight into it. The staff could also be used to rescue a sheep that had fallen, become tangled, or wandered somewhere that it couldn't escape on its own. Or remember the cast sheep that's laying upside down waiting to get help? Haven't we all been there? Sometimes we end up in a difficult place through no fault of our own, but sometimes we get there because we've wandered, ignored a warning, or made a wrong choice. Yet our shepherd doesn't stand there at a distance and say, well, you got yourself into this, now get yourself out. Nope. Our shepherd reaches for us. He draws us back. He rescues us and returns us to the path. His staff reminds us our shepherd is close enough to guide us and rescue us. We just have to trust in him. We may not physically see a rod or feel a wooden staff against our side. So you might ask, how do I experience the protection and guidance of the shepherd? Well, we experience through his word, the Bible, which helps us recognize truth when the enemy whispers lies to us. Or we experience it through the Holy Spirit, who warns us and redirects us, convicts us, and gives us that peace. And we experience through prayer, not because prayer always changes our circumstances, but because prayer draws us closer to the one holding that rod and staff. And sometimes we recognize his protection only when we look back and realize that that door needed to close. We realize that, or that delay protected me, or that conviction in my heart brought me home. God was guiding me even when I couldn't feel him, even when I was choosing my own path. You see, the rod and staff don't simply show us what the shepherd carries. They reveal who our shepherd is. The rod tells us he is strong enough to protect us in any circumstance. And the staff tells us that he is close enough to guide us. Remember, the staff is not super long. He's close enough to guide us back. They both say that he's paying attention to us. Our comfort isn't believing that nothing difficult will ever happen. Our comfort is found in knowing that whatever happens, we will not face it without our shepherd. You see, the sheep aren't safe because they're strong. They're safe because the shepherd is. So if you feel fearful or vulnerable today, just remember his rod. If you're uncertain about which direction to take, stop and look for his staff. Pray, Holy Spirit, guide me. And if you've wandered, allow him to draw you back. His protection may not always look like the way you might expect. His guidance may not always take you where you planned. But his rod and his staff are still in his hands, and you are still under the care of the Good Shepherd. As we wrap up the last two verses of Psalm 23, we're going to discover what it means for our shepherd to prepare a table before us in the presence of our enemies, anoint our heads with oil, and fill our cups to overflowing. And then we'll also learn how he pursues us with his goodness and his love all the way home. You guys, if this video touched you, I'd love for you to subscribe and share it with someone who might need to hear this today.